In this English vocabulary masterclass, you're going to learn over 2 hours of English words, phrases, and phrasal verbs for language exams like your IELTS and TOEFL. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, in this masterclass, you're going to learn 33 advanced words for exams. Number 1, feasible. Feasible. This means possible to do easily or conveniently. Now, this is commonly used in writing when discussing the practicality, how practical is, proposals or solutions. For example, switching to renewable energy on a large scale may not be feasible, may not be easily or conveniently done in certain regions due to geographic limitations. Or for an everyday example, you could say, when you have a great teacher, getting a high IELTS score becomes feasible, becomes easy to do. Do you agree with that? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Number 2, proponent. Proponent. This is a person who advocates for, who supports a theory, proposal, or course of action. Now, this is frequently seen in discussions about policy, debates, and research in both speaking and writing. For example, proponents of renewable energy. So this is people who support, who advocate for renewable energy, argue that it provides a sustainable alternative to fossil fuels.
I am a proponent of supporting any foundation, any type of group that is being proactive about this.
As you know, I've been a very strong and vocal proponent in the industry regarding both the need and the opportunity to rethink the models from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. I'm a huge proponent of all of us being interdependent versus independent.
Number 3, deploy. Deploy. This means to move into position for action, or it can mean to utilize something in a strategic manner. This is often used in writing to describe the implementation of resources, so the use of resources or strategies in various fields. For example, the government. This is commonly used with government. The government deployed emergency teams. So they put those teams in position or used them strategically. So how did they use them strategically? Perhaps to help tackle the aftermath of the hurricane.
Deploy algorithm.
And accidentally deploy when you were landing.
Deploy the fleet.
Number 4, notable. Notable. This means worthy of attention or notice. It could also simply mean remarkable. This is commonly found in writing to highlight significant differences or achievements. For example, one notable difference, so one significant difference, one important difference between rural and urban lifestyles is the level of access to healthcare facilities.
African soldiers proved to be notable jungle fighters.
And that's one of the more notable aspects of how we painted at this time anyway, certainly through the 1490s.
This well-preserved church is notable due to its high church tower that has been struck by lightning numerous times throughout its history.
Number 5, detrimental. Detrimental. This means causing harm or tending to cause harm. This is used in writing mainly to discuss negative impacts or consequences of policies and actions. You could say, while many aspects of technology are beneficial, excessive screen time can have a detrimental effect, a negative effect on mental health. So this is a great word to have that contrast, which is commonly done in writing.
Can be detrimental.
You're a detriment here.
My bitterness would be detrimental to my recovery.
Number 6, mitigate. Mitigate. This means to make less severe, serious, or painful. This is useful in writing and speaking to discuss ways to reduce negative impacts, especially in environmental contexts, which are common on the IELTS. For example, countries worldwide are investing in renewable energy as a means to mitigate, to reduce the effects of climate change. So to make those effects less serious, to mitigate.
Stop mitigating everyone.
With mitigating circumstances. While mitigating the health risks.
Number 7, discrepancy. Discrepancy. This is a lack of compatibility or similarity between two or more facts. This is commonly used in writing when analyzing data or discussing research findings. For example, a noticeable discrepancy exists between the reported income levels of urban and rural populations. So the discrepancy is that difference.
Why is there this discrepancy? It seems that we're doing a comparative evaluation.
But typically, I could find a discrepancy. And then I would say, well, I'm not saying it.
And any discrepancy should hopefully be external. So as I go.
Number 8, resilient. Notice that Z, resilient, resilient. If someone is resilient, it means they're able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. This is very useful in speaking and writing when discussing communities or individuals facing challenges, which is very common on the IELTS. For example, communities affected by natural disasters have proven to be remarkably resilient, rebuilding their lives and homes, so they're able to quickly recover from these negative situations.
It's time to embrace a resilient, strong culture of processing, not repressing.
We can push for a safe, kind, resilient, and human digital future.
People are leaving these climate resilient areas for economic reasons.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Number 9, alleviate. Alleviate. This is to make suffering or deficiency or a problem less severe. This is commonly used in writing and speaking to discuss solutions to societal issues like poverty or health. For example, local governments are implementing policies to alleviate, to reduce housing shortages in urban centers. Number 10, vulnerable. Do you know this one? Vulnerable. This means susceptible to physical or emotional harm. Again, this is often used in discussions about social issues, health, and even environmental concerns. You could say older populations are more vulnerable, so they're more susceptible to health issues, which means they get health issues easier and faster. Vulnerable, especially during severe weather conditions.
He's vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Being vulnerable.
Number 11, paradigm. This one is very common. Paradigm. This is a typical example or pattern of something. You can think of it as a model. This is frequently found in writing to discuss shifts in thinking or approaches. You could say the adoption of digital technology in classrooms represents a significant paradigm shift. So a shift in thinking in education.
Is that it's a paradigm that's trying to hold us back.
So it's kind of a new paradigm that actually seems to unlock things not only in fundamental physics, but also in the foundations of mathematics and computer science, and possibly in areas like biology and economics as well.
I believe it's time to reject that old paradigm and realize that our fates are linked.
Number 12, viable. Viable. This means capable of working successfully It can also mean feasible. So it's very important to learn alternatives, synonyms, because you'll commonly see them. And if you want to discuss these same issues, you can use an alternative word, a synonym. So now we have viable. This is used in discussions about sustainability and practical solutions. For example, solar power, you could say, is becoming a viable alternative to traditional energy sources in many sunny regions, at least. Number 13, benign. Notice that silent G, benign, benign. This means having no significant harm or adverse effect, negative effect. This is commonly used in discussions about impacts and effects to talk about something not having an effect. For example, despite initial fears, the new construction projects are expected to have a benign effect on local wildlife. So it means the new construction projects don't have an effect. They don't have a significant effect. They have a benign effect.
It's benign.
Were they benign?
Fine and benign.
Number 14, conducive. Conducive. This means making a certain situation or outcome likely or possible. This is common in discussions about environments that encourage certain behaviors or outcomes. For example, students suggest that a clutter-free space, a space free of clutter, free of things, distracting things, is conducive to better concentration and learning. So it helps you achieve that outcome.
It's not conducive to health.
Atmosphere wasn't conducive, right?
Isn't conducive to rhyming well.
Number 15, incentive. Incentive, do you know this one? This is a thing that motivates or encourages someone to do something. This is used in discussions about economics, business, and public policy. You hear this frequently. For example, to reduce emissions, the government introduced financial incentives for companies investing in clean energy. So those companies will get something in return, an incentive, if they invest in clean energy. Number 16, compile. Compile. This means to produce by assembling information and other sources. This is often used in academic writing and research discussions. For example, the researchers compiled, so gathered together, compiled data from numerous sources to ensure a comprehensive analysis.
Compiled them in our data processors.
And combined it with compilation.
Who compiled this map?
17, contradictory. Contradictory. This means mutually opposed or inconsistent. This is used in writing when discussing conflicting ideas or conflicting data. For example, the study presents contradictory findings, with one portion indicating benefits and another highlighting potential risks. So they're opposed to each other. Risks and benefits and risks, they're opposed, so it's contradictory.
Saying that out loud almost sounds contradictory. Upside and grief.
And honestly, our physics is telling us a lot of contradictory things.
They allow us to interpret its complex and contradictory signals.
Number 18, foster. Foster. This is to encourage or promote the development of something, and usually something good. And this is commonly used in discussions about education and social policies. Educational institutions should foster creativity, encourage creativity because it is positive, and critical thinking in their students. Number 19, retention. Retention. This is the continued possession, use, or control of something. This is used in writing when discussing education and employment practices, very common in employment. For example, employee retention, the ability to retain, keep employees. Employee retention remains a priority. As high turnover, employees leaving, as high turnover can disrupt team dynamics. Number 20, depict. Depict. This is to represent by a drawing, painting, or other art form. This is common in discussions about art and literature, which is common in writing tasks. For example, art from this period typically depicts scenes. So in that art, you see this scene represented. So depicts scenes of everyday life, showcasing rural traditions.
Inside the church, the paintings depict scenes from the Old and New Testaments and effigies of patron saints.
Would depict it as an illustration of the flexibility and wisdom of common law adjudication.
The paintings depict the image of a chair in various stages of completion or dissolution.
21, to steer clear of. So notice here we have a phrase, to steer clear of something. This means to avoid someone or something. This is used in speaking, and you can use it to give advice or recommendations, which is very common on IELTS. For example, health professionals often advise patients to steer clear of, to avoid processed foods to maintain overall well-being. 22, solely. Solely. This means not involving anyone or anything else. It can also be a replacement to only. This is useful in writing to clarify specific points or responsibilities. For example, the success of the project does not solely depend on funding. So it does not only depend on funding, but also on effective management. So this is a nice complex sentence, and you can replace only with solely. 23, abundant. Abundant. This means existing or available in large quantities. It also means plentiful. This is commonly used in discussions about resources and again, environments. The country is known for its abundant natural resources, particularly oil and timber.
Public space must be as free and abundant as the air we breathe.
Fishing. Near the village, seals and caribou were abundant.
To speak of, it does have abundant land and abundant sun and wind. We can't all duplicate that.
24, sustainability. Sustainability. This is the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. This frequently appears in discussions about environmental issues and development. Investing in renewable resources is critical for the sustainability of our environment. You will absolutely hear this word and you should use it as well.
Biodiversity can contribute to the sustainability of a community.
And I think the main way I think you should look at it is about sustainability.
Sustainability, it's become something that a lot of people in the world are striving for because we recognize what's going on with the world these days.
25, assess. Assess. This means to evaluate or estimate the nature, ability, or quality of something. This is common in writing when discussing evaluations in education and business. For example, teachers assess students' understanding through regular tests and assignments.
It assesses us.
Assess your options.
Interesting assessment.
26, target. Target. This is an objective or result toward which efforts are directed. So you direct your efforts toward a target. This is commonly used in writing, especially in essays discussing your goals and objectives. You could say the initiative targets a 25% reduction in carbon emissions within 5 years. So notice here it's a verb. The initiative targets, to target. This is also a noun, a target. The target is a 25% reduction. 27, elicit. Elicit. This is to get a response, answer, or fact from someone, often through questioning or discussion. This is commonly used in writing when discussing studies, research, or data. For example, the questions were designed to elicit authentic responses, so to get real, honest responses from participants. Number 28, decipher. Decipher. This means to interpret or to make sense of something that is difficult to understand. A synonym is to decode, to decipher, to decode. This is commonly used in writing when discussing the meaning of someone or something. For example, scholars spent decades attempting to decipher the ancient script, so attempting to understand the meaning of the ancient script.
Professor Arm wants to decipher which data can lead to discriminatory actions or privacy invasions, and to set safeguards for a better protection of human subjects in data science.
Students with hearing loss rely more heavily on visual cues to decipher what is being said.
And now we have the capacity to decipher life in a way we never did before.
29, fluctuate. Fluctuate. This means to change or vary irregularly, so not by following a pattern, and often in amount or level. This is commonly used when discussing the results or current state of something. For example, the stock market fluctuates. It's up, it's down, and it's not a regular pattern. It's irregular. The stock market fluctuates dramatically in response to world events.
Any weight fluctuations?
Just weight fluctuates.
Any weight fluctuations?
Number 30, outline. Outline. This is to give a summary of something and is often used in writing to present main ideas or structures clearly. For example, the professor outlined the main points of the lecture at the beginning.
Just the outline. Anything you outline with this, I just outlined for you.
31, promote. Promote. This means to support or actively encourage. This is frequent in discussions about public health, education, and social initiatives. For example, government campaigns often promote healthier lifestyles to reduce healthcare costs. 32, habitat. Habitat. This is the natural environment in which an organism lives. This is commonly used in discussions about ecology and conservation. For example, protecting forests is essential to preserving the habitats, the homes of numerous species. 33, augment. Augment. This is to make something larger, greater, or more intense. This is common in speaking and writing to discuss increases or improvements in systems, infrastructures, or even skills. For example, the government allocated additional funds to augment public health services, so to help improve the size or state of these public health services in response to rising demands. Amazing job! Now let's move on and focus on phrases, and you'll learn 30 full phrases for exams. Of course, on the IELTS, they're going to ask you, where do you live? You can say, I was born and raised in Winnipeg. That's where I was born and raised. Did you know that? I was born and raised. To be born and raised in. Now here your verb is to be, so of course you need to conjugate it in the past simple because it's a completed past action. I was born and raised in, and then you can state your city or your country. Now don't worry about taking notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can look in the description for the link. You can add on to this to make it sound more complex, to make you sound more advanced. I was born and raised in Winnipeg, but now I live in Ottawa. Go even further and say, I've lived here for over 10 years. Now notice I used the present perfect You can also use the present perfect continuous only for the verbs live, work, and study. And this is for an action that started in the past and continues until now. So in the present perfect continuous, I've been living here for over 10 years. You can use for plus the specific number of years. You can even say 4 years, several years, many years, a number of years. All of those are possibilities. Now let's move on to tell me about your work. You can say, I'm an engineer. I know this is a very simple sentence, but most students get it wrong because they forget the article. You must use an article before your job title. Most likely you're going to use a or an, but it is possible to use the article the. This is when there is only one position in the organization and you have that one position. For example, I'm the executive director. So there's only one executive director and that's me. Now, if we use the, it's more common to explain what the organization is or what the company is. But if you include just your job title with a or an, you can, but you don't need to. But if you use the, make sure you state your organization. Now add to this and add a general statement about your specific job. Being an engineer is rewarding. Notice here, being starts the sentence because it's a gerund statement. Gerund statements will absolutely make you sound more advanced. You could say, I love using my analytical skills to solve complex problems. Love is a verb of preference, so you need the verb of preference plus a gerund. Love using. You could say, I enjoy collaborating with my team. Enjoy is a verb of preference, so you need the gerund. I enjoy collaborating with my team and brainstorming unique solutions to complex problems. So sure, you could say brainstorming solutions to problems, but adding adjectives makes you sound more advanced. You just mentioned something positive about your work. Why not make a contrasting statement and start with however? This is a transition word that we use to make a contrast, and using transition words will make you sound so advanced. However, being an engineer also has its challenges. So before we had positives about being an engineer, however, and now a negative about being an engineer, a contrast. So now you can share one of those challenges, specifically another transition word to make you sound advanced. Specifically, I work around the clock to meet tight deadlines. To work around the clock is an expression, and using expressions really shows you understand the language more at an advanced native level. And of course, to work around the clock, you can just imagine you work continuously, you work non-stop. Now let's talk about hobbies. You can begin with a gerund statement that expresses your opinion on hobbies. In my opinion, having hobbies is integral to living a fulfilling life. So our gerund statement is having hobbies is integral to, but then I just added on to that by expressing my opinion. So let's review some opinion words. Of course, in my opinion, in my view, from my perspective. Notice here, from my perspective. Personally, I think that. Have at least 4 different opinion words. You can use these 4 in your vocabulary when you go for your IELTS. Now let's get back to hobbies. You made your general statement, your gerund statement beginning with an opinion word. Now you can state your specific hobby. I'm an avid hiker. Or maybe I'm an avid cyclist, guitar player, tennis player, whatever your hobby is. So here the structure is to be an, avid, and then you need a noun. And this means you have a strong interest, passion, or enthusiasm for that activity. Now you can make a gerund statement about why you enjoyed this activity. Hiking gives me the opportunity to disconnect from my devices and enjoy the beauty of nature. Now notice that the gerund statement started with the verb hiking. You can also start a gerund statement with the noun. For example, guitar. Guitar gives me the opportunity to. You could say playing guitar, so you're using the verb form or the noun form with guitar. Both are correct. Now let's say you don't have any hobbies. Don't worry, you can still answer this question in a very advanced way. You can say, until now, my focus has been on my career. However, I'm considering taking up, and then an activity, taking up drawing. So notice we have our present perfect. My focus has been, because the action started in the past and continues until now. Take up is the phrasal verb we use specifically with hobbies and activities to mean start. And notice consider plus gerund. I'm considering, that's in the present continuous. I'm considering taking up. Take is in the gerund because consider plus gerund. You could also say, however, I'd love to take up drawing. The expression here is I would love, and then infinitive. Perhaps it's simpler to remember and it still sounds advanced, so feel free to use this alternative. Now you can still add on a gerund statement about drawing, but use the future simple because you're not doing the activity right now. Drawing will give me the opportunity to disconnect. You could say, I'm confident that, or I'm hopeful that drawing will give me the opportunity to disconnect. You will sound very advanced. Now let's move on to tell me about your family. You can say, I'm from a close-knit family. Close-knit. Notice that pronunciation, close-knit. This is an adjective that describes the family. Now, this is the same as saying, my family and I are very close. My family and I. This is the subject we. My family and I are very close. You can say everyone in my family gets along because everyone is conjugated as a singular. Everyone gets along really well, or use extremely well to sound more advanced. Here's a great expression. Everyone says, I take after my mom in looks, and I take after my dad in personality. When you take after someone, it means that you resemble them physically. So if you have a photo of you and your mom and people say, oh, I see the similarities. You take after your mom because your mom came first, and maybe your mom takes after your grandmother, etc. But for personality, you can use this as well. So maybe your dad is very funny and you are very funny. So you take after your dad in personality. A great phrasal verb to use on the IELTS to sound very advanced. Now let's move on to talking about travel. You can say, I'd love, I would love. I'd love the opportunity to see Egypt, to travel to. Notice, travel to Egypt, but see Egypt, visit Egypt. So know when certain verbs require additional prepositions. Travel to a location, visit a location. If I could travel anywhere, I'd choose Egypt. This is our second conditional because it's hypothetical. And notice we have modal plus base verb. Don't use the infinitive, modal plus base verb. Of course, you can use a gerund statement. Visiting Egypt is at the top of my list. Imagine you have a list of places you want to visit and Egypt is at the top. You can make this more advanced by using the present perfect. Traveling to Egypt has been at the top of my list for as long as I can remember. An action that started in the past and continues until now. Now, why not use an opinion word? From my perspective, the pyramids are one of our world's greatest treasures. So you're sharing an opinion that reinforces why you want to visit Egypt. You can go on and say, and I'd revel in the opportunity to see them with my own eyes. The expression is to revel in the opportunity and then your infinitive, to see them. This is a very advanced way of saying I would thoroughly enjoy seeing the pyramids. Now, as a bonus, let me share some phrases that you can use when you want to clarify your answer. So you're answering and you realize that the words aren't coming out very well. You can say, what I'm trying to say is, and then you can change your thought. You can express your thought a different way. What I mean is, what I'm getting at is, what I'm trying to get at is, to put it another way, in other words, and then you communicate your idea. I suggest memorizing 4 of these because they will be very helpful when you're taking your IELTS. You're doing amazing. Now let's focus on phrasal verbs, and we'll review some academic and professional phrasal verbs. First, in this section, I'm going to quiz you, and then you'll learn the phrasal verb in detail, and then you'll complete another quiz to make sure you really know them. Question 1. I recommend providing a few more examples to your point. Now, I'll only give you 3 seconds to answer, which is not a lot of time. So feel free to hit pause, take as much time as you need, and when you're ready to see the answer, hit play. Flesh out. Question 2. Thankfully, the new requirements don't our research. Bear on. Question 3. Have you your recommendations to the head of the department? Put forth. Question 4. If you need help, the study, I have an experienced graduate student. Carrying out. Question 5. I hope our recommendations, positive change. Bring about. Question 6. These statistics really our hypothesis. Back up. Question 7. We're conducting a new study to the results of our last study. Build on. Question 8. I'm surprised your thesis only the government's role. I expected to read more about it. Touched on. Question 9. The majority of the presentation, our recent findings. Dwells on. And finally, question 10. It's obvious the presenter, her experience as a medical doctor. Drew on. So how'd you do with that quiz? Was it difficult? Don't worry if it was, because now I'm going to explain each phrasal verb in detail and you're going to feel very comfortable with them. Let's start that now. To put forth. This is used when you present or propose an idea, argument, or theory for consideration. For example, the scholar put forth an intriguing hypothesis regarding cultural evolution. In this case, when you say she put forth this hypothesis, it means she presented it, she proposed it, and it suggests there's going to be consideration. Is this a good hypothesis? Is this a bad hypothesis? And why? So they'll discuss it and decide. Let's talk about the verb conjugation of the verb to put forth. So the phrasal verb is to put forth, but with phrasal verbs, you only conjugate the verb. Here, the verb is put. The base form is put. The past simple is, yesterday, she put forth a hypothesis. And the past participle is put. She's already put forth. She has put forth. So notice those three conjugations are put. It's the time reference or the context of the sentence that will make it obvious if it is the base verb, the past simple, or the present perfect. To bring about. This is used to say that something causes or initiates a change, a result, or an outcome. For example, this study aims to bring about a shift in public perception of environmental issues. So in this case, they want to bring about a shift in public perception. So they want to initiate a change in the public perception. To draw on. This is when you use or refer to existing knowledge or sources. For example, the author drew on previous studies to support the proposed hypothesis. So if the author drew on the previous studies, it means the author used the information in those previous studies or refer to the information in those previous studies. So simply use the information. And notice here, it's an irregular verb. The author drew on. That's the past simple. So the author draws on, that's the present simple. The author drew on, that's the past simple. And the author has drawn on, that's the present perfect. So draw, drew, drawn. To flesh out. This is to fully develop an idea, and you do that by providing more information, details, or explanations. For example, the next chapter of the thesis will flesh out the theoretical framework. If I read this, then I know that the next chapter will provide more information about the theoretical framework. I'll know that right now, I don't really know what the theoretical framework is, but that's okay because the next chapter will flesh it out. In the next chapter, I'll have a lot more information. Perhaps there'll be some examples, there'll be better descriptions. So in the next chapter, all my questions about the theoretical framework will be answered because the author is going to flesh it out. To bear on. This means to be relevant or applicable to a situation or an argument. For example, these findings bear on the ongoing debate on educational policies. So if these findings bear on the ongoing debate, it means that the findings are relevant to the ongoing debate or that you can apply these findings to the ongoing debate. So basically, they're useful. It's useful information to have, to bear on. This is also an irregular verb. So the base verb is bear. The past simple is bore. The findings bore on the ongoing debate. And the past participle is borne. The findings have borne on the ongoing debate. To back up. This is when you provide evidence, support, or validation for a claim or argument. For example, the statistical data backs up the researchers' assertions about demographic trends. So here, if the data backs up the researchers' assertions, it means the data supports what the researcher said or thought. It supports it. And generally, if you're making a claim, it's always useful to have the data, the evidence, or the information to back that claim up, to support that claim. To build on. This is when you develop or expand on existing theories, ideas, or concepts. For example, the new theory builds on previous research in cognitive psychology. So if this new theory builds on previous research, it means that the new theory expands this previous research. So it provides more information or perhaps new information, but on the same topic as before, cognitive psychology. To carry out. This simply means to do or to complete something. For example, the research team carried out a study involving 100 participants. This sounds more advanced than simply saying the research team completed a study. They carried out a study. It means the same thing, but by saying carried out, you sound more advanced. To touch on. This means to briefly mention a topic or an idea without going into the details. For example, my presentation will touch on the key findings of our recent study. So you can expect that this presentation will briefly discuss the findings of the recent study, but it will not go into the details. So it won't flesh it out. It won't flesh out the recent findings. It will only touch on them. So it will mention them briefly, or it will mention what the finding is, but it won't explain how that finding was developed or the implications of that finding or what they're going to do next because of that finding. It will only touch on it. To dwell on. This is to focus extensively on a specific topic or idea or aspect. For example, the author does not dwell on the importance of environmental regulation. So this means that the author doesn't focus extensively on environmental regulation or the importance of environmental regulation. So it's possible that the author touches on the importance of environmental regulation, mentions it briefly, but it's not something that is discussed in detail. Now that you're more comfortable with these academic phrasal verbs, how about we do that same quiz again? And I promise your score will be a lot higher this time. Here are the questions. Hit pause, take as much time as you need, and when you're ready, hit play to see the answers. Here are the answers. Hit pause, compare your answers to mine, and when you're ready, hit play. Amazing job! Share your score in the comments, and now let's do something different. We'll review an article together, and this article is from the Academic IELTS Reading Section 3.
Our article is called Time Travel. Let's start the first section. Time travel took a small step away from science fiction and toward science. So you have here is science fiction. Fiction is the opposite of fact. So we have two categories. We have fiction, which is not real, like Harry Potter. And then we have nonfiction, which is real, like a historical biography or autobiography. I wrote those definitions here. So time travel took a step away from fiction, so away from not true and toward true. Here, notice how we have the word toward as a preposition. Two spellings are correct. You can say toward or towards with an S. So if you hear someone say towards with an S, it's not incorrect. Both of them are grammatically correct and acceptable. And towards science recently, when physicists discovered that subatomic particles known as neutrinos, just listen to my pronunciation, neutrinos, can exceed the speed of light. So if you exceed something, it means you've gone beyond it. Now, in this case, they're talking about speed. So to go beyond means to go faster than. If you exceeded your spending limit on your credit card, you've gone beyond that limit, which means you've spent more money than you have available. And notice here we have can, which is a modal verb, and then we have exceed, which is the base verb. So grammatically, you always have modal plus base verb, not the infinitive can to exceed. No, just can exceed. So modal plus base verb can exceed the speed of light. So these neutrinos, which are subatomic particles, don't worry, I don't know what a neutrino is. I don't really know what a subatomic particle is because I'm not a physicist, but I understand that they're particles and they can go faster than the speed of light. That is what I know based on the article. The unassuming particle. Unassuming is an adjective, and when you describe something as unassuming, it means it doesn't attract a lot of interest or attention. So maybe you're walking down a street and there's a restaurant, but it doesn't attract your interest or attention because maybe it's very small, it doesn't look very nice from the outside. There isn't a lot of decorations. The sign for the restaurant is very small, so you almost don't even notice the restaurant. So it's an unassuming restaurant, but you go in and the food is delicious, but you almost didn't notice it because it's unassuming. So these particles, these neutrinos, are unassuming. They don't attract a lot of attention or interest, likely because they're just very small. They're not considered something that's very important in science. The unassuming particle, it is electrically neutral, small, but with a non-zero mass. So this is simply giving us more information about what this particle is, because the average person does not know what a neutrinos is. A physicist knows what this is, but the average person does not. So this is giving us more information on this particle. The unassuming particle, it is electrically neutral, small, but with a non-zero mass and able to penetrate. Now notice here, able to penetrate. Is something missing from this expression? And able to penetrate. The expression is to be able to. That's the full expression. But notice, it is electrically neutral and able to penetrate. So when we have and, you don't need to repeat the main verb. So you can say, for example, she is tall and thin. Okay? She is tall and thin. So you don't have to say she is tall and is thin. You can get rid of this main verb and just say she is tall and thin. The same thing is happening here. The only difference is instead of having one simple word like tall, we have all of this information. So it's easy to forget that this is also attached to able to, because the expression is not able to, it's be able to. Okay, so for example, you can't say she able to speak Japanese. You can't say that. This is grammatically incorrect because the verb to be is missing. So I'll put a frowny face and an X. She is able to speak Japanese. So now this is correct because we have to be able and then your infinitive. So that is what's happening here, and able to, but we're using the verb to be for both sections, before and after and. So don't forget that with able to. And able to penetrate, when you penetrate something, it simply means you go into. So let's say I'm putting cream on my skin. When the cream goes into my skin and you can no longer see it, it means the cream penetrated my skin. It went into my skin. So this neutron, this neutrinos, can go into your skin. It can penetrate the human form. Undetected. So you don't see something going into your skin because they're not visible. They're so small that you can't see them. So that means undetected, not visible, not known, not visible, or not known, undetected. Is on its way to becoming a rock star of the scientific world. When you see this dash here and then another dash, it means you can remove all of the information between the dashes and the sentence would be grammatically correct. For example, let me read it without the information in blue. The unassuming particle is on its way to becoming a rock star of the scientific world. Grammatically correct. The information between the dashes is additional supplementary information. And in this case, it gives you more information about what the neutrinos is because, as I said, the average person just doesn't know. Don't worry about writing all this down because I summarize everything in the free lesson PDF. So you can look in the description below to download the free lesson PDF. Let's continue. Researchers in Geneva sent the neutrinos hurtling through an underground corridor. Let's take a look at hurtling. This means to move very fast, but it also implies in a dangerous way. So when these neutrinos were hurtling through the underground corridor, so imagine the corridor is going straight and the neutrinos are going very fast, but maybe they're banging against the sides of the walls. They're crashing into each other, not in an orderly, straight way. So you can use this, for example, with drivers. You might say the delivery driver hurtled up my driveway. So he came up your driveway, he drove up your driveway very quickly, but also very dangerously. So quickly, and maybe he's swerving. There's an object here. He's going right for it. Maybe you're standing here and he doesn't seem to be stopping. He hurtled up your driveway. Let's continue. Researchers in Geneva sent the neutrinos hurtling through an underground corridor toward their colleagues, or towards, remember, their colleagues 730 kilometers away in Italy. The neutrinos arrived promptly. Promptly is an adverb, and it means quickly, without delay, but also at the scheduled time. So for example, the meeting will start promptly at 9 a.m. Often when you schedule a meeting at 9, some people might come to the meeting 9:03, 9:05, just a little bit late. But if you say the meeting will start promptly at 9, I will start the presentation at 9:00, not 9:01 or 9:02, promptly at 9. So immediately at 9. So in this case, the neutrinos arrived promptly, so we can say quickly without delay. So promptly, in fact, that they triggered what scientists are calling the unthinkable. Let's look at triggered and unthinkable. So first, triggered. When something triggers something, it simply means it causes it to start. So the fact that the neutrinos traveled so promptly caused something else to start. And that something else is that scientists are now rethinking time travel. So that's the something. You could say, for example, speaking in public triggers my anxiety. So speaking in public causes my anxiety to start. I wrote that example here for you. Now, the unthinkable, this is when something is just so shocking or unlikely that it's difficult for you to imagine, difficult for you to actually form a picture. For example, a world without language would be unthinkable. Can you even contemplate, can you think about what life would be like if nobody spoke any language? Language was not invented. A human being never uttered, which means spoke, never uttered a word, never spoke a word, ever. Could you even imagine how we would interact with each other? It's unthinkable. It's so shocking and unlikely we can't even really think about it. So time travel is another thing that's just unthinkable. Can you imagine what life would be like if we could time travel? It's unthinkable. That everything they have learned, known, or taught stemming from the last 100 years of the physics discipline may need to be reconsidered. So this is the unthinkable, that everything that physicists know about their discipline, they may need to think about it again if time travel is possible. I want to point out the past simple here of the verb learn because you might be confused as to why it has a T. So learnt is the preferred spelling and pronunciation in British English. In American English, which I teach, the preferred spelling and pronunciation is learned. So notice we have a soft T here, learnt. And then in American, learned with a soft D, learned. Both of them are grammatically correct. It's just two countries prefer two different words. Everything they have learnt, known, or taught, stemming from. Here, to stem from simply means come from, to come from. Come from. So in this case, because it's in the gerund form, I'll put mine in the gerund form. Coming from the last 100 years of the physics discipline may need to be reconsidered. So when you add re in front of the verb, it means you do the verb again. So you need to consider again. So that means consider again because you add reconsidered. We need to consider it again. So let's say you asked your boss for a promotion and your boss said no. Maybe you could say, can you reconsider? Can you consider my proposal again? And most likely he'll say no, but hey, maybe he'll say, I guess I could reconsider. And then you can explain again why you deserve a promotion. And maybe this time your boss will say yes. So it's always possible for someone to reconsider. Let's continue. The issue at stake. So at stake is simply when something is being considered. So here, the issue being considered, the issue at stake, so being considered, is a tiny segment of time, precisely 60 nanoseconds. So now they're going to explain what 60 nanoseconds is because the average person who is not a physicist does not know. So 60 nanoseconds is 60 billionths of a second. So you have 1 second and then you divide that 1 second into billions and you take 60 of them. For me, I can't really comprehend what 60 billionths of a second is, to be honest, because a second is like that. And imagine you take 60 billionths of that second. It would be so fast. It's unthinkable. I can't even imagine what that would be. So notice I just used unthinkable. This is how much faster than the speed of light the neutrinos manage to go in their underground travels and at a consistent rate. Even allowing for a margin of error of 10 billionths of a second, this stands as proof that it is possible to race against light and win. So here, they're comparing the speed of the neutrinos to the speed of light, which is just so fast that you and I, average people, can't really understand how fast it is because it just happens so quickly. So they're just letting you know it happened faster than the speed of light. And this allowing for a margin of error, they're saying even if our calculation was incorrect, don't worry, it's still accurate. So they accounted for that. They allowed some miscalculation in their formula, and the neutrinos are still faster than the speed of light, even if their calculation is somewhat inaccurate. So that's a margin of error. You'll see this a lot in studies, scientific studies, research studies, a margin of error of 10 billionths of a second. The duration of the experiment, duration is the length. The duration of the experiment, the length of this experiment, the entire time of the experiment. So length or entire time of the experiment also accounted for. When you account for something, you simply consider it. So they considered that margin of error, that their calculation may be somewhat inaccurate. So to consider. Also accounted for, considered. So here, accounted for something. So notice the preposition, you account for something, but you consider something. So we don't use considered for, it's just considered because we don't need the preposition for. And considered and ruled out. The phrasal verb to rule something out is when you no longer have something as a possibility. So to no longer have an option as a possibility. So basically it means to exclude an option, to exclude an option. So let's say you are considering different options. Maybe you're going to give your team a promotion, give them an extra vacation day, or give them free lunch on Fridays. Those are your three options to show your support for your staff. But you're going to rule out promotions. You're going to no longer consider that as an option because you don't have the financial resources to offer promotions and it's very expensive. So you're going to rule out promotions. Now you just have two options to consider. So they ruled out any possible lunar effects. Lunar is the moon, so effects from the moon because the moon can influence time. And tidal bulges. I don't know what a bulge is. I assume it's similar to a wave, and tidal relates to the tide. So going when the water goes in and out, that is called the tide. So tidal bulges in the Earth's crust. So this information is just to let you know that their calculation considered many different factors to understand if they are wrong. And they're still saying, even if we take all of this into account, consider all of this, the neutrinos are still faster than the speed of light. Let's continue. Nevertheless, the transition word nevertheless is used when you are going to have a contrast. So here they're talking about all the reasons why the neutrinos are faster than the speed of light. But now, because I have nevertheless, I know they're going to introduce evidence to say that this might not be true because there has to be a contrast. So this is a transition word used to introduce a contrasting point. Nevertheless, there's plenty of reason to remain skeptical. Skeptical means I'm not sure if I believe you, or I'm not sure if I believe this topic. I'm not sure if I believe that we can travel through time. I'm skeptical. So, not sure if the person can be trusted or believed. Person or information. In this case, it's the information they're presenting. Information can be trusted or believed. So, I'm skeptical. I'm not sure. According to Harvard University science historian Peter Gallison, Albert Einstein, of course, Einstein's relativity theory has been pushed harder than any theory in the history of the physical sciences. Pushed harder than, it means that every scientist has tried to prove that his theory is not correct. So they've pushed his theory harder than any theory in the history of the physical sciences. Yet each prior challenge, prior means previous, so each challenge that had previously happened, previous. You see this a lot in job interviews. Do you have any prior experience? Do you have any previous experience? So let me write that for you. Do you have any prior experience in Excel? So Excel is a Microsoft software for organizing data. Do you have any prior experience in Excel? Do you have any previous experience? Yet each prior challenge has come to no avail. So remember I said they've tried to prove that Einstein's theory is inaccurate or incorrect, but it's come to no avail, which means they have not been successful. So no avail means not successful. Let's review this example. I asked my boss for a promotion, but to no avail. So notice the expression is to no avail, and this means not successful. So I didn't get the promotion. My boss said no, but to no avail. I'm hopeful he'll reconsider. I'm hopeful, that's just another way of saying I hope he'll reconsider. So remember, we talked about this. Consider it again and change his decision. But he's skeptical. I don't know. I'm not sure if Jennifer's ready for a promotion. He's skeptical that I'm ready for a management position. So here we used a lot of expressions in one thought, one advanced thought. Let's continue. So is time travel just around the corner? When something is just around the corner, it means happening soon. Happening soon. So you could say, my vacation is just around the corner. Happening soon. So is time travel happening soon, just around the corner? The prospect, so the prospect is the idea that time travel is just around the corner. The prospect has certainly been wrenched much closer to the realm of possibility. This simply means moved closer to the realm of possibility, meaning that something is possible. So a simple way of saying this is the prospect has certainly been moved towards possibility. Now that a major physical hurdle, a hurdle is an obstacle, something that prevents you from achieving a goal. So an obstacle, hurdle, obstacle. The speed of light. So this is the obstacle, the hurdle for time travel. The fact that we need to travel faster than the speed of light. And so far, nothing has traveled faster than the speed of light until these neutrinos has been cleared. So to clear the hurdle means to get rid of it, to eliminate it. If particles, these neutrinos, if particles can travel faster than light, in theory, traveling back in time is possible. That's unthinkable, isn't it? How anyone harnesses that. To harness something is when you use something successfully. To use something successfully. Use something successfully. For example, we have now harnessed the power of the sun through solar panels. So you put a solar panel on the roof of your house and it harnesses the sun, the energy of the sun. It uses that energy successfully by then heating your house. So we've already harnessed many things in our environment. Why not time travel? How anyone harnesses that, so how anyone uses time travel successfully to some kind of helpful end is far beyond the scope of any modern technologies. Okay, so far beyond the scope of. When something is beyond the scope of, it means that it is not included in. Not included in. For example, teaching you about Einstein's theory of relativity is beyond the scope of this lesson, which means it's not included in this lesson. It doesn't mean it's not important. It's just beyond the scope of this lesson. It's not included in this lesson. So it's beyond the scope of any modern technology, however, and will be left to future generations to explore. When you leave something to someone, it means that you give the responsibility to someone else. So the future generations now have the responsibility to take the information from this article, the fact that these neutrinos can travel faster than the speed of light, and try to harness that, try to turn it into something tangible that we can use and benefit from. So that's not our responsibility. We're going to leave that to future generations to explore. So that's the end of the article. What I'll do now is I'll go to the beginning and I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. Time travel. Time travel took a small step away from science fiction and towards science recently when physicists discovered that subatomic particles known as neutrinos can exceed the speed of light. The unassuming particle, it is electrically neutral, small, but with a non-zero mass, and able to penetrate the human form undetected, is on its way to becoming a rock star of the scientific world. Researchers in Geneva sent the neutrinos hurtling through an underground corridor toward their colleagues 730 kilometers away in Italy. The neutrinos arrived promptly. So promptly, in fact, that they triggered what scientists are calling the unthinkable, that everything they have learned, known, or taught stemming from the last 100 years of the physics discipline may need to be reconsidered. The issue at stake is a tiny segment of time, precisely 60 nanoseconds, which is 60 billionths of a second. This is how much faster than the speed of light the neutrinos manage to go in their underground travels and at a consistent rate. Even allowing for a margin of error of 10 billionths of a second, this stands as proof that it is possible to race against light and win. The duration of the experiment also accounted for and ruled out any possible lunar effects or tidal bulges in the Earth's crust. Nevertheless, there's plenty of reason to remain skeptical. According to Harvard University science historian Peter Galison, Einstein's relativity theory has been pushed harder than any theory in the history of the physical sciences. Yet each prior challenge has come to no avail, and relativity has so far refused to buckle. So is time travel just around the corner? The prospect has certainly been wrenched much closer to the realm of possibility now that a major physical hurdle, the speed of light, has been cleared. If particles can travel faster than light, in theory, traveling back in time is possible. How anyone harnesses that to some kind of helpful end is far beyond the scope of any modern technologies, however, and will be left to future generations to explore.
Think of everything you've learned so far. Now let's keep going and learn natural phrases. And you'll do this by listening to fast English. You'll listen to a sentence 3 times, and I want you to write down what you hear. And then after, you'll learn vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. So here we go. I'll say it 3 times. Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you get that one? I said, did you break it to him? First, let's talk about the pronunciation changes. Did you, we pronounce this as didja, didja, didja. So I combine those sounds together and I take you and I change it to ya, didja, didja. Did you break it to him? Notice the last 2 words really sounded like one word. Tim, Tim. It almost sounded like Tim, the name Tim. And that's because we frequently get rid of the H on him and her at a natural pace and we connect it to the word before. So it really sounds like im, and then you hear the t from to. Tim, Tim. Did you break it to him? Now what does this mean? To break something to someone is an expression, and we use this when you share news or information with someone, but it's always negative. So maybe you applied for a promotion, but you're not going to get the promotion. So that's the negative news. Did you break it to him that he's not getting the promotion? So did you share this negative news with him? Did you break it to him? Our next listening test, remember to put what you hear in the comments. Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Did you get that one? I said, cut it out, would you? First, let's talk about pronunciation. Did ya? The same thing is happening here with would you. You becomes ya, and I combine those sounds. Would ya, ja, ja, would ya, would ya, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Now let's talk about cut it out. You'll notice we have T's in between vowels. In American English, when a T comes between vowels, we change that to a d, a very soft D. Cut it out, cut it out. And I pronounce all 3 as one. Cut it out, cut it out, cut it out. Cut it out, would ya? The expression to cut something out means to stop something that is annoying or frustrating or irritating or unwanted. So let's say you're in a meeting for work and in the background your kids are going crazy. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're fighting. This is behavior that is unwanted, frustrating, irritating, annoying, and you want them to stop. So you can say to your kids, cut it out, would ya? Our next listening exercise, write what you hear in the comments. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. Did you get that one? I said, you gotta kick it up a notch. First, notice how I used gotta. This is a reduction. It's a combination of the words got, to, and it's pronounced as one. Gotta, you gotta. You can also say you've gotta, you have got to, but in American English, it's very common to just say you gotta, you gotta. You got to is the same as you have to. Now let's talk about the expression to kick something up a notch. When you kick something up a notch, it's just encouraging you to perform better, work faster, work harder. So let's say you were tasked with assembling 100 boxes. and 2 hours have passed and your boss sees that you've only assembled 20 boxes and your boss wants to tell you that you need to work harder, you need to work faster, you need to perform better, she can say, you gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta work faster, you gotta work harder. Our next listening exercise, write what you hear in the comments. I'll say it 3 times. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. How'd you do with that one? I said, don't let him get to you. First, let's talk about pronunciation. Don't let him. Let him. Notice again, I take that H off of him, I drop the sound, and then I'm left with im, but I combine it with the word before. Let him, let him, let him. Don't let him. Don't let him get to you. Now I said you at the end. Many native speakers will drop this to ya. Don't let him get to ya, get to ya. Just like we saw with did ya, would ya. But I said you. Don't let him get to you. Now, what does this mean? When someone gets to you, it means that you become angry, annoyed, irritated, or frustrated because of that person's behavior. But we can also use this in situations. If you get really angry when you're stuck in traffic, I can say, don't let the traffic get to you. So don't let the situation make you angry, because what does being angry do? It doesn't benefit the situation in any way. Don't let the traffic get to you. Don't let your boss's criticism get to you. Don't let it anger you, frustrate you, or annoy you. Our next listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. Write what you hear in the comments. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Did you get that one? What are you looking at? So here we have a very simple sentence, but it might be difficult for you because of those natural pronunciation changes, how I combine my words at a natural pace. What are you sounds like one word. What are ya? What are ya? So the R just becomes and I attach it to what? What are you? Now, I think I said you, but you can also again shorten that to ya, and native speakers commonly do that. So get comfortable with it. What are you? What are ya? What are you? What are ya? But remember, it sounds like one word. What are you? What are you looking at? Here, it's very common to take a word that ends in ing and drop the G sound, that G sound, and just end it on looking at. But notice I combine it with the word that comes next because it's a vowel. Looking at. So instead of looking at, it sounds like nat, and then I combine them. Looking at, nat, looking at, looking at. What are you looking at? So how did you do with those listening exercises? Share your score in the comments below, and remember, you are being tested on your ability to understand the words I say, but also the ability to understand what my meaning is. So maybe you understood the words, but you didn't know the expression or the idiom. You didn't know what it meant. So you need both. But don't worry if this was difficult, because the more you practice, the more you study native speakers, the more you add these expressions to your vocabulary, the easier it will become. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say each sentence again, and I want you to imitate me and try to say it as closely to the way I pronounce it. And if you're in a private space, I want you to say it out loud. If you're in a public space, well then try this again when you're at home and you can say it out loud. Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. Don't let them get to you. Don't let them get to you. Don't let them get to you. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Now practice this again and again until you feel very confident that your pronunciation is close to mine. What do you mean she can't make it? Did you hear what I just said? What do you mean she can't make it? I said, what do you mean she can't make it? But of course, I didn't say it like that. I said, what do you mean she can't make it? Notice how I said, what do you? What do ya? What do ya? What do you mean? What do you mean? This is called connected speech, and native speakers love connecting their speech. But of course, this makes it difficult for you to understand us. So let me share the most common connected phrases that you need to know. The first one, of course, what do ya? What do ya? What do you mean? What are you doing? What do you want? How do you know she can't make it? Did you catch this one? How do you? How do ya? How do ya? How do you know? What you doing this weekend? Did you get this one? What are you becomes what ya? What ya? What ya? What you doing this weekend? So make it your goal to learn these connected phrases, but for now, focus on the top 3 you need to know. What do ya? How do ya? And what ya? How about this one? How are you gonna get to the mall? How are ya? That's a connected phrase. How are you? How are ya? How are ya? Gonna. Now this is a reduction. We take 2 words, going to, and we reduce it into one, gonna. These are informal. They're very casual, but they're frequently used in spoken English. I gotta go. I'm sure you know this one. Got to sounds like gotta. I gotta go. Give me a break. Gimme, gimme, give me a break. Give me sounds like gimme. I don't know. I don't know. Don't know as a reduction. I don't know. I want to go to the movies. Want to becomes wanna. Start with these and pay attention and keep adding more reductions to your speech. We'll be there at 5. We'll be there at 5. We will be there at 5. We'll be there. Will. This is a contraction. We take 2 separate words and we form one word. The thing you need to know about contractions is that they are grammatically correct. You can use them in your spoken English and your writing, and although they do sound more casual, they are grammatically correct. I would never say it is a hot day. I would say it's a hot day. It's a hot day. I would not say she is my friend. I would say she's my friend. She's my friend. Now, because of this, students might not get the verb because it's in a contraction. You must learn contractions if you want to understand native speakers. Let's start with the most common. It is, it's. There is, theirs. I have, I've. You are, your. Should not, shouldn't. Will not, won't. Start with these and keep adding contractions to your speech. It will help you understand native speakers. Let's try that listening exercise from the beginning again. What do you mean you can't make it? What do you mean you can't make it? I'm sure you already understand this a lot more because you now understand the connected speech. But did you also know I said make it, make it? Now, if you looked at each individual sound, it sounds like May, kit. So you might be thinking May, the month of May, April, May, and kit, like a Kit Kat bar? I don't understand. This is linking. Linking is when we take a sound from one word and we put that sound on the next word. We do this in English to help us connect our speech and smooth our pronunciation so we can speak without pauses. Make it. Notice there's that k on make, but it forces me to take a pause. Make it. So to get rid of that pause, I take that k and I put it on the next word. Make it. Make it. Let's try another listening exercise. You shouldn't walk alone at night. Now, I used a contraction. Should not becomes shouldn't. You shouldn't. And then I said walk alone. But again, there's that k sound. So I take that K sound and I put it on the next word and it becomes cologne. But cologne sounds a lot like men's perfume, which we call cologne. For women, it's perfume, but for men, it's cologne. So this can cause confusion because you might think I just said cologne, meaning men's perfume. But this is part of walk alone. Walk alone. Walk alone with linking. The best way to get comfortable with linking is to study native speakers. So instead of listening to an entire 30-minute episode, just listen to one sentence on YouTube or on TV and pause and listen to that sentence many, many times and really get comfortable with how those sounds are pronounced together. And really get comfortable with how those sounds are pronounced at a natural pace. Let's try a listening exercise. I got a lot of merch. I got a lot of merch. I got a lot of merch. Here I used a reduction. A lot of is pronounced a lotta, a lotta. Now what is merch? Maybe you understood the sound, you understood I said merch, but you have no idea what that means. That's because native speakers, we shorten words all the time for no reason. This is very casual and informal, but it's done in both a professional and social context. So merch is short for merchandise. If you work in a company that buys and sells products, most likely your coworkers will say merch, and you might not understand what they mean. That's a fab dress. Fab is short for fabulous. I have to take my cat to the vet. Vet is short for veterinarian. Are we meeting at HQ? HQ is an acronym for headquarters, which is the head office, the main office of a company. But pretty much everyone calls it HQ. So when you're studying native speakers, listen for these shortened words and just make a list of them and keep adding the most common ones to your speech. Let's try another listening exercise. You gotta cut it out. You gotta cut it out. I used a reduction, got to, gotta, you gotta. Cut it out, cut it out, cut it out. Now maybe you heard the what and you're thinking, what does Jennifer have to cut out? Does she have to cut something out? But no, because this is an idiom. So to understand native speakers, you have to learn phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions because we use them all the time. Take a look at this article from Forbes magazine. Now, everything I have underlined is either a phrasal verb, an idiom, or an expression. And they don't have literal meanings. So maybe you understood the word cut, but that doesn't help you understand my message because it doesn't have a literal meaning. Now, there are hundreds and hundreds of phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions, but don't worry because I have many video tutorials on my channel already. So make it your goal to add one a day, one phrasal verb, idiom, or expression a day, and that will be 365 in 1 year. And by expanding your vocabulary with these phrasal verbs, idioms, and expressions, it will really help you understand native speakers. Here's how this lesson will work. I'll say a sentence 3 times, and you need to write down exactly what you hear. After, I'll explain the pronunciation changes that I used in spoken English, and I'll explain what the expression means. Are you ready for your first listening exercise? Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Did you get this one? I said get out of here. Let's talk about a common reduction, outa. Out of, side by side, you can pronounce as outa, outa. Get out of here, get out of here. And if you don't feel comfortable using that in your speech, that's fine, but you should understand it because native speakers use it the majority of the time in spoken English. Outa, get out of here, get out of here. And maybe you understood the words, but did you understand the expression? This might be a trick question because there are actually 2 totally different meanings for this expression. There's the more literal meaning where I want you to leave the room that I'm currently in, being here. Get out means leave, leave of here, of the room I'm currently in. So I'm recording this video and my annoying little sister barges in and starts talking. Get out of here. That's what I would say. Now, most likely you're going to say it with a little bit of anger or annoyance. Get out of here. And it's not a very polite expression. So if you politely want to ask someone to leave, don't say, get out of here. You should say, would you mind leaving? Could you please leave? Because I need to film a video. Get out of here is also used as an expression to show shock or surprise at what someone said. So let's say my friend just told me she's going to move from Chicago to Australia, around the world, and she has lived in Chicago her entire life. To show my surprise or even shock, I could say, get out of here, get out of here. It's almost like saying, really? Wow, I can't believe it. Get out of here, get out of here. Now with this expression, it will be lighter. There won't be that anger or annoyance in it. Get out of here. There'll be more surprise in it. Get out of here. So the meaning will depend on the overall context of the situation, and also look for the tone of voice because that can be very helpful to decide. Our next listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. Give me a break. Give me a break. Give me a break. Did you get this one? Give me a break. Pretty easy, right? Did you hear that reduction? Give me, gimme, gimme, gimme. Again, you might not feel comfortable using reductions in your speech, but you should understand them because native speakers use them most of the time. Give me a break. What does this mean? This is another expression. We use this to express disbelief in what someone says. Let's say I am watching TV late at night and I see an advertisement for a pill that is supposed to help me lose 20 pounds overnight. That's what the ad says. If I want to show my distrust or disbelief with this ad, I can say, give me a break, give me a break. There's no way that's true. Give me a break. So that's a fun expression you can use, and remember that tone. You'll want to add some sarcasm into this. Oh, give me a break. Do you want to keep improving your listening skills of fast English? Well, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers on TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills, learn common expressions, and learn advanced grammar as well. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for more information on how to join. Are you ready for another listening exercise? I'll say it 3 times. My sister will know. My sister will know. My sister will know. I said, my sister will know. Did you hear the verb will? My sister will know. Probably didn't hear it, but maybe based on the grammar, you understood that it has to be there because my sister know doesn't make any sense. Something's missing. My sister will know. You probably know that we form subject will contractions. I will go, I'll go. You'll go, he'll go, she'll go, it'll go, will go, they'll go. Those are subject pronoun contractions and they are grammatically correct. Learning contractions is another must when you want to understand native speakers. In this case, a noun phrase, my sister, isn't contracted grammatically. But in spoken English, we combine them together anyway, even though grammatically this isn't done, simply to be able to speak faster and confuse students. But remember, grammatically, we only contract subject pronouns with will. So in your writing, make sure you don't write my sister will as a contraction. But in spoken English, you'll hear it. Another listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. You ought to call her. You ought to call her. You ought to call her. Did you get this one? You ought to call her. So here, ought to, a very common reduction, oughta, oughta. Ought to is a modal verb used to express necessity. More commonly, you should call her, but you can also use ought to. You oughta call her. In spoken English, native speakers will say oughta the majority of the time. Now, did you hear call her? Maybe to you it sounded like one word, collar, collar, like a dog collar. That's because we drop the H sound on her and it sounds like but we also combine it with the previous word, call, and then we combine them, collar, collar. Again, based on context, you'll understand that I'm not saying collar like a dog collar, and I'm in fact saying call her. You ought to call her. How about one more listening exercise? I'll say it 3 times. I had an inkling she'd bail. I had an inkling she'd bail. I had an inkling she'd bail. Oh, did you get this one? I had an inkling she'd bail. She'd bail, she would, as a contraction. This is a grammatically correct contraction. She'd bail. I had. Had can also be in a contraction with a subject pronoun when it's the auxiliary verb. So if I turn this into the past perfect, I had gone, I can say I'd gone, because then had is the auxiliary verb. I'd gone, I'd gone. But here, because it's the main verb, we don't turn it into a contraction. I had an inkling she'd bail. What does it mean she'd bail? Bail? Well, when someone bails, this is an expression that's used when someone doesn't do what they said they were going to do. And we specifically use this with plans and arrangements. So let's say I made a plan with my friend to watch a movie on Saturday at 7 o'clock. Then Saturday, 7 o'clock, no friend. She bailed. She bailed on me. I can't believe she bailed on me again. She didn't do what she said she was going to do. And again, we use this frequently with plans and arrangements. Now, what's an inkling? An inkling. I had an inkling she'd bail. An inkling is a slight indication, a slight hint, a slight suggestion. So something my friend said made me think she was going to bail. Maybe she didn't sound that excited about seeing the movie. Maybe she's been talking about how tired she is. So that's an inkling. An inkling. That's fun to say. An inkling. I had an inkling she'd bail. You're doing such a great job. Now let's focus on confusing English words. And we'll also do this as a quiz. You need to complete the sentence with the correct word, and you need to do that in only 3 seconds. Do you think the discount will the client? Which option, A or B? I'll give you 3 seconds. Appease the client. Appease is a verb. We use this when you want to give someone something they want in order to make them happy or in order to prevent further disagreement. So I'm giving them a discount to make them happy. It will appease them. Now, if you said B, appeal, keep in mind that appeal has a very similar meaning. It means to be attractive to, but grammatically, the sentence is incorrect because if you use appeal, it's appeal to the client. And because I don't have the preposition to, B is an incorrect option grammatically. Question 2. She's a very employee. Option 1, option 2. The correct answer is A, diligent. She's a very diligent employee. To be diligent, this means to be careful or using a lot of effort and attention to detail. For example, I worked diligently on the report all week. So notice in this case, it's an adverb, diligently. I worked diligently on the report all week. Question 3. Sorry, I can't help. I'm at math. A or B? B, inept. I'm inept at math. To be inept at something, this means to not be skilled or to be ineffective at something. I'm inept at math. Number 4, she's the most member of our team. A or B? A, gregarious. B is incorrect grammatically. We can't say most great. You would say greatest, right? So grammatically, B doesn't work. A, gregarious. To be gregarious, when someone is described as gregarious, it means that they're very social. They enjoy being around other people. So what about you? Let us know in the comments. Would you describe yourself as a gregarious person? Do you enjoy being around other people? Are you very social? Let us know in the comments so you can practice that word. Number 5, we need to with the accounting department. A or B? The answer is B, follow up with. Grammatically, A is incorrect. You don't follow out with someone. You follow up with someone. And this means that you continue a discussion or conversation that was previously started. I could say, I already followed up with the accounting department. I already continued the conversation we had previously started. Number 6, that's a difficult concept to A or B. B, to grasp. When you grasp something, it simply means that you understand it. So it's the same as saying that's a difficult concept to understand. That's a difficult concept to grasp. Number 7, you should all your debt to reduce your interest rate. A or B? B, consolidate. Consolidate. When you consolidate 2 or more things, it means you combine them together. So if I said the 2 firms consolidated last year, this means that last year there was firm A, firm B, but now because they consolidated, there's one firm. So the 2 become 1. Consolidate. Number 8, the book discusses his illness and resignation from politics. A or B? A, subsequent. His subsequent resignation from politics. This has a simple meaning. Subsequent just means something that comes after something else. So first he had his illness, and after he resigned, his subsequent resignation, his resignation that came after his illness. We commonly use this as an adverb to start a sentence. So I could say, he moved to Australia. Subsequently, he got married. And I'm using subsequently to let you know that he got married after something else. And that something else is after he moved to Australia. He moved to Australia, subsequently, he got married. Number 9. He gets stressed out when he's A or B? The correct answer has to be B, under pressure, because over pressure is the wrong preposition. The preposition you need is under pressure, to be under pressure. And that's simply when you have a lot of work and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling stressed out. You can use this positively and say, I work really well under pressure. So when I have a lot of work, I actually perform better, not worse. I work really well under pressure. Number 10, women face a lot of in the workplace. A or B? Well, ostrich is a bird, so women don't face a lot of ostriches in the workplace. They face a lot of obstacles. An obstacle is something that blocks you, and it can be something physical like a roadblock, or it can be something non-physical like discrimination. So it's something that blocks you from making progress. That's an obstacle. Number 11, thank you for your remark. A or B? The answer is B, pertinent. Pertinent remark. When something is pertinent, it means it's relevant to the topic or discussion at hand. So let's say you're having a conversation and then someone raises a point and you think the point is very relevant to the topic or conversation, you can say, that's pertinent. That's pertinent. That's relevant, related to our topic at hand. Number 12, you can that to the interns. A or B? B, delegate. You can delegate that to the interns. When you delegate something, it's when you give someone else responsibility for a task or a specific job. So when you're doing a task that you really don't want to be doing, you can say, I wish I had someone to delegate this to. I wish I had someone who I could give this task to. Number 13, I have a really workload this month. A or B? A, heavy. B is a direct translation. It's not something that we use in natural English. It sounds awkward and unnatural. A, heavy, is the adjective that we use to describe our workload. When your workload is heavy, it simply means you have a lot of work to do. And what's the opposite of heavy? The opposite is light, right? Light. So when you don't have a lot of work to do, you would say, I have a light workload. Heavy workload, light workload. So what about you? How would you describe your workload right now? Would you say it's heavy or light? Let us know in the comments so you practice this new expression. Number 14, the police have been unable to, what caused the explosion? A or B? B, ascertain, ascertain. When you ascertain something, you discover something. So to ascertain the cause of the explosion is to discover the cause of the explosion, to understand why. So when the police do understand why, they discover it, they can say, we've finally ascertained what caused the explosion. It was a faulty gas line. And then they can tell you the cause of the explosion. And finally, your last question in the quiz, number 15. You've been all week. Just do it already. A or B? The answer is B, procrastinating. You've been procrastinating all week. When you procrastinate, it means that you delay doing something, but that something has to be done, and you delay doing it. And why? Well, generally because it's unpleasant, like chores around the house, cleaning the garage, cleaning the bathroom, doing the dishes, it's unpleasant. Or it's simply boring, like organizing your closet or filing your paperwork. So you delay doing it, but it has to be done. That's procrastinating. Think of everything you learned today that will help you for your exam and also communicating in the real world. Do you want me to make another lesson like this? If you do, put masterclass, masterclass, put masterclass in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And I have another masterclass I know you'll love, so make sure you watch it now.